gathered to hear from a very promising young scientist and a bright young mind, Dimitris Boufidis. Dimitris' journey from his early days in the city of Thessaloniki to his groundbreaking research at the University of Pennsylvania is a testament to the power of education, innovation, and determination. His story is one that bridges the worlds of science and diplomacy. My first encounter with Dimitris was in April of this year, during an event where Greece was announced as the host country of the 2024 first global robotics competition. It was a memorable occasion, but one moment in particular left a lasting impression on me. During the event, Dimitris was recognized by none other than will.i.am, the rapper, singer, record producer, and vocal advocate for STEM education and global innovation. The music icon congratulated Dimitri as an example of the transformative power of STEM education. In his closing remarks, and looking directly at Dimitris was sitting behind me. I didn't know him at the time. will.i.am said something that resonated with me. He said, "This is the dream. This is the outcome. People like Dimitris. Dimitris, you're awesome." I turned back to see the awesome guy. And I see a baby face. I could not believe it. This encounter left a strong impression on me, and after speaking with Dimitris, it became clear to me that his story could inspire others. And that is why I invited him to speak today. I wanted, of course, to see him again. This is something also personal. I wanted to be inspired myself once more. But it was in that moment that I saw how Dimitri represents not only just the outcome of Greece's investment in science and technology, but also the future we all aspire to. After speaking with him, I realized just how far his passion for STEM had taken him, and how much more he had to offer, both in terms of his pioneering research and his vision for the role of science in shaping global policy. It became clear to me that Dimitris' story is inspirational. Today he will share with us his journey, from his experiences in robotics to his cutting-edge research in bioengineering. But more than that, he will highlight the role of science diplomacy in addressing the world's most urgent issues, from healthcare to sustainability. This presentation is not just about Dimitris' achievements. It is about how education, innovation, and diplomacy can come together to shape that future. Dimitri represents the best of what Greece can offer, and I'm confident that his story will inspire many more young scientists to pursue their passions, engage with the world, and work toward a better tomorrow. Thank you all for being here today, and Dimitri, I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nasika, for this wonderful introduction. I would like to thank you and thank the Embassy of Greece for the kind invitation, as well as Ms. Mourtoupalas for organizing this event. Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you all for being here today. Ambassador Nassika mentioned several successes in her kind words about me. But what is a real success? To me, success is the resilience to failure. And this resilience is always strengthened by enthusiasm. That's the only reason why I'm here today, to share with you my enthusiasm and my optimism through some personal defining moments that brought me from Greece to the United States. My journey will be presented in 3 different parts. One could call them past, present, and future. I call them from robotics to bioengineering and science diplomacy. We will start from how it all began, from playing with Lego to raising the Greek flag at global robotics competitions. Then I will focus on my bioengineering studies and my current PhD research on brain regeneration. In the third and final part, as Ambassador Nassika mentioned, I will share my vision for the role of scientists in the foreign policy landscape. We will explore what is science diplomacy, how early career scientists can get involved, and how Greece could leverage its scientific expertise to achieve its diplomatic objectives and become a leader in science, technology, and innovation in Europe and the world. So, without further ado, let's begin this journey and start from how it all began. Let's go back in 2013 in Thessaloniki, Greece. I was 13 years old, and along with my brother George, who is a year older, we persuaded our grandparents to spend 250 euros, a big amount for us back then, to buy us a Lego robot kit. Within 6 months, we decided to enter our first robotics competition. Lacking a willing teacher to register as a coach, we recruited our dad, even though he didn't know anything about robotics. So, with our grandparents' Christmas gift and a clueless dad who turned into a coach, we won our first podium, 3rd place in the national WRO competition in Athens. The first takeaway? If you're determined, you can become really creative on how to overcome obstacles. Next year, we aimed higher. Bigger competition requires bigger team. We all worked hard throughout the year as this competition was way more than just robots. In fact, actually, only 1/3 of the competition was the robot part. Another third was an independent research project, and the final third assessed our team's core values: teamwork, collaboration, fair play, and inclusion. 2nd place in Greece this time, a ticket for Spain, and 3rd place in the European finals. The second takeaway? The core values of the competition is what makes it so unique. I learned how to work in a team, but in this competition, even having fun and sharing your enthusiasm with other teams were also part of the score. Can you imagine it? Forcing you to be the best version of yourself actually makes you the best version of yourself. And let me give you an example. Do you know how we lost the 1st place in the European finals? Our older generation robot is still the same Christmas gift from my grandparents, by the way. This robot ran out of battery during the last game of the playoffs. It was back-to-back games in the playoff elimination round. We knew that we could be first, and we weren't. Failure? Let me tell you just one thing. I will never forget how my brother looked at me. He smiled, did this. We hugged, and we accepted our defeat with a smile. And I will tell you that the next morning, we woke up with ideas for improving our technique and with a stronger motivation to achieve absolute victory the following year. Only failure can generate such a strong drive for success. All right, so fast forward to the next and final year. Our team grew to 9 members, 2 boys and 7 girls, with diverse and complementary skills. Sky's the limit was our mantra, a way of playing, a way of thinking, and finally a way of living. We won first place in Greece. We traveled to the US for the first time, and we placed fourth among the top 107 teams in the World Championship. Lessons learned from this wonderful experience? Let me share some of them. I want to start with the power of gamification. Learning can and should be fun. The competition was a gigantic part of knowledge. I'll show you a video later and you will see how it was a celebration of ideas and innovation. It was the first time that the seed of studying in the US was first planted in my brain as well. It was also the first time that I met people from literally all over the world. Teaching them how to dance Greek sirtaki was our way of connecting with them. In our fragmented world, we experienced firsthand how such a competition that merges science and robotics with core values like teamwork and enthusiasm can really transform lives. And the other takeaway from this experience was the power of teamwork. We are a team, and for a team, anything is possible, we were shouting again and again. We're all unique, and everyone in the team has something special to offer, we're finally convinced. Do you know how the Vice President of NASA welcomed us at the closing ceremony? He looked at the audience, he pointed to us, and he was like, I'm gonna hire you, and you, and you, and you back there. I'm gonna hire you at NASA. And I don't care what you're gonna study. I don't care what your grades are. I'm not gonna hire you because you are the smartest people in the world. I'm gonna hire you because you've shown that you can work effectively as part of a team. And this is your superpower. It was a very transformative experience. And let's watch a short video that I made after this competition to take a breather and also give you a better understanding of what this competition was, this giant party of knowledge. It was an absolutely amazing experience. Now let's fast forward to today. Educational robotics in Greece is booming. Thousands of students have access to what was a struggle just a decade ago. As Ambassador Nasika mentioned, just over a month ago, Greece hosted the first global robotics competition in Athens, including a special concert from will.i.am and the Black Eyed Peas, that are fervent supporters of STEM education. As Ambassador Nasika mentioned, it was actually at the event announcing this competition here in DC that we met for the first time, and thanks to her kindness, I'm here today in front of you. For once, Greece became the epicenter of educational robotics, hosting a world-class robotics event that brought together students, mentors, innovators from all over the world. Each year, over 500,000 students participate worldwide in these robotics competitions organized by FIRST. The scale of this competition showcases how much impact they could have on young minds. This recent event reflects Greece's growing role in shaping the future of STEM education. It also highlights the newfound opportunities for young minds in Greece to engage with cutting-edge technological innovation and positions our country as a leader in educational robotics and a beacon of inspiration for the next generation of young scientists and engineers. Robotics wasn't just about building machines. For me, it was about solving real problems, using creativity and teamwork to overcome challenges. It sparked a passion in me that went beyond the competition. I realized I want to use these skills not just to build robots, but to create solutions that could change lives. The lessons that I learned through robotics, perseverance, problem solving, and hard work fueled my ambition to push further. I knew that if I wanted to pursue my dreams, I would have to be dedicated. It would require dedication. I worked hard at school, and eventually I earned a scholarship from the University of Sheffield in the UK to study bioengineering. Given the financial crisis in Greece, I knew I couldn't rely on my parents financially to support my dreams and goals. So when I went to Sheffield, I worked basically in every job I could find on campus. And luckily my efforts paid off. I graduated with a Chancellor's Medal, that is the biggest distinction a student can receive in the university, and was also named at the same time the UK's Student Employee of the Year. And now here I am, pursuing my PhD in bioengineering at the University of Pennsylvania. So we say bioengineering, but what is exactly bioengineering? Simply put, it's the combination of engineering and medicine. We use engineering principles to solve some of the world's biggest medical challenges. Imagine from 3D printed organs to exoskeletons, brain implants, and surgical robots. The future is now, and bioengineers are innovating to improve lives. Allow me now to delve into a slightly more technical aspect of my work on brain regeneration. I will still keep it very high level, but I'm happy to discuss more specifics about the science afterward. And I'll try to keep it short to allow time for questions. So what are we trying to do? 60% of the brain volumes is pathways, these long wires that connect different parts of the brain. These wires are essential for the brain to function, but they are vulnerable to different injury and disease, like traumatic brain injury, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, and stroke. Right now, there is no strategy that is able to rewire the brain after disease. So we're using engineering to solve this problem. This is a slice of a brain. Every part of the brain has a distinct population of cells that we call neurons. The cells in these different areas of the brain communicate with each other using these pathways. In various diseases, these pathways get disrupted. The wires of the brain get disconnected and die. Take Parkinson's disease, for example. You probably know the motor symptoms that arise from Parkinson's disease. These motor symptoms arise from the disruption of one of these pathways. That was the one that we showed before in the slide. Imagine these pathways as bridges. They're the highways that connect different cities in the brain. When a bridge collapses, various conditions appear. So our big question is, how can we rewire the brain after such a collapse? In Dr. Casey Cullen's lab at the University of Pennsylvania, we have developed what we call living wires. Think of them as living bridges made of neurons, made of biological material to reconnect the brain. We use a miniature hollow tube, we call it a hydrogel microcolumn, that on one side has a spheroid of neurons. This tube guides long axons from these neurons to grow along this tube. So we grow this living wire in the lab, and then it can be implanted in the brain to restore the damaged connection. This is the first time that tissue engineering is being used to treat the underlying pathology of these diseases. We're not just treating symptoms, but we are regenerating the brain. This work, of course, wouldn't be possible without a large team of fantastic scientists working together to make this a reality. As you probably know, nothing in science is the result of just a single person. So I would like to acknowledge everyone in the labs of my two PhD advisors, Dr. Casey Cullen and Dr. Flavia Vitale at the University of Pennsylvania. So brain implants may indeed transform outcomes for patients. They allow paralyzed people to walk or even cure diseases like Parkinson's. And now speaking more generally, we see that scientists are tackling significant challenges worldwide. We all hear about artificial intelligence, and technological advances like AI and quantum computing are developing faster than ever. And at the same time, we have issues like pandemics and climate change that cannot be confined within national borders. They all raise various ethical and regulatory questions that require international coordination. So who should address these issues to ensure that emerging technologies benefit society? How do we ensure equitable access, not just for the wealthy and the few, but for everyone, anywhere on the planet? In this third and final part, I want to introduce you to the concept of science diplomacy. Let's start with a quick video that shows the power of science diplomacy in a nice animated way before we delve into all the details.
Here is a riddle for you. The year is 2222. The sky is blue, the oceans are clean. Nobody's going hungry, nobody's burning fossil fuels. How did we get here? Confused. Let's work it out. Rewind to the present. Oh dear, plenty to sort out. Climate change, biodiversity loss, lack of food security, pollution. Who can solve the global challenges of the 21st century? Well, here's a politician. It's her job to decide and implement policies for the benefit of citizens. The solution to global problems is partly in her hands, but she's not an expert in every field. She needs advisors. Look, here's a scientist. She has reliable technical knowledge, and she works to make discoveries and to try out new solutions. But the scientist and the politician still need help to bring countries together. Ah, here's a diplomat. He has international experience and cultural sensitivity. He finds common interests between countries and fosters collaborations. He's also part of the solution if he coordinates his work with others. But wait, there are more. Concerned members of society, activists, intellectuals, business people, each doing their part to shape the future. So, back to our riddle. In the year 2222, who saved us? Only a combination of policy, science, international cooperation and society can solve our global problems. The sum of these efforts is what we call science diplomacy. Together, they form a shared method for bringing society into the best possible future. Science diplomacy is a collaborative and international approach to tackle grand societal challenges. What does this cooperation look like in practice? For example, during a pandemic, scientists produce evidence and recommendations to government officials, who must make decisions regarding public health, travel and trade, among other questions. At the same time, diplomats keep open, efficient channels of communication which aid the exchange of information between experts across the globe. Now, consider the global action on climate change. Knowledge shared by the world's climate scientists provides diplomats with important evidence to negotiate international agreements to reduce emissions. So, in practice, science diplomacy involves a wide range of activities, combining foreign policy and scientific endeavour. The European Union can be a leader by strengthening science diplomacy to address global challenges. This can be done, for example, by fostering spaces for interaction between scientists, diplomats, policymakers and society, who must all work together, sharing their influence and expertise. During this process, new professionals must be trained, such as science advisors to governments and science attachés at embassies, to facilitate the exchange of specialist knowledge. In the future, when we tell the story of how current global challenges were addressed, we will remember leaders of different countries coming together, taking decisions supported by reliable scientific information. We will look back at the process of science diplomacy.
So we saw an introduction of what is science diplomacy and why we should care. I will try to break it down into pieces, but I want you to understand that science diplomacy is not just one thing. It's an umbrella term that encompasses three key areas. We call them diplomacy for science, science for diplomacy, and science in diplomacy. Do they all sound the same? Well, they aren't. So let's break them down one by one. Diplomacy for science. Can we use diplomatic channels to facilitate international research and scientific collaboration? The answer is yes, we can. Single nations cannot create large-scale scientific infrastructure. For example, Greece is a small country to have its own CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research in Switzerland. And frankly, no European country is big enough to have its own such large-scale infrastructure. However, what we can do is we can leverage good diplomatic relations to advance scientific goals, to create exchange programs between different nations, to negotiate R&D agreements, to establish CERN in Switzerland, or to build a giant telescope in Chile. So, in diplomacy for science, nations that already have good diplomatic ties are using diplomatic action to facilitate international research collaboration and build scientific infrastructure. Let's go on the next one, science for diplomacy. Between countries that do not have good diplomatic relations, we can use science as a soft power to advance diplomatic objectives. Can we do that? Yes, we can is the answer again. Think of the scientific collaboration between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Even at peak tensions, science may act as a bridge, as a pressure relief valve. Science may build the goodwill where formal diplomacy may struggle. It may also create a foundation on which diplomatic relations can then be built. And the third term in this science diplomacy umbrella is science in diplomacy. This is probably the most straightforward of the three. Can we directly support the diplomatic process through science? And the answer again is yes, we can. When diplomats negotiate on climate change, for example, science enables data-driven decision-making. It's scientists that provide advice that guides national and foreign policy. And of course, science diplomacy initiatives can be all of the three, it's not just one. So it's important to dissect the critical elements. What are the goals, the strategy, the actors, the actions involved? In an incredibly complicated world, as you know, global decisions are no longer made by single nations or single entities, but it's networks of nations, NGOs, international organizations, activists, companies, scientists, diplomats, and many more. So a network-based analysis is required. 2 years ago, I didn't even know that science diplomacy exists. I didn't even know the term. It was at the University of Pennsylvania that I found the Penn Science Policy and Diplomacy Group, a student-led organization that today I'm proud to serve as the current Science Diplomacy Chair. So what do? We design workshops, seminars, and training sessions that equip STEM PhD students with the skills and knowledge that bridge the gap between scientific research and policymaking. We are one of the most active student groups in the country, and we are trying to become a major science diplomacy hub in the Northeast. Right now, there is no degree program to become a science diplomat. There is no pathway to become a science diplomat. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to fill this important gap of developing an educational curriculum for STEM PhD students to learn about this emerging concept of science diplomacy. All right, but what science diplomats actually do in real life? They are increasingly employed in positions like advisors to elected officials, science attachés in embassies. And let me share a unique example with you. We all hear about AI and artificial intelligence, the impact of social media on democracy, cybersecurity. We discuss about how tech giants are changing the global power balance. So what was Denmark's response just a few years ago? They established the first technology ambassador, tech ambassador. Imagine a diplomat that instead of going to meet with presidents and prime ministers, they would meet with CEOs of companies like Microsoft and OpenAI to regulate artificial intelligence. Such a role has now been adopted by over 25 countries. And let's go to the European Union. In response to all the changing geopolitical and technological landscapes, many European Union member states have created national science diplomacy strategies. France, Spain, Austria, and Germany are just some examples of these countries. And we're now seeing science diplomacy emerging at the European Union level too. Several nations have also strengthened scientific capacity in their ministries of foreign affairs. The Netherlands now have a chief science officer. Lithuania has a science and innovation advisor in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And Slovakia established the role of ambassador at large for research and innovation. And beyond the European Union, Switzerland is another good example. They have the Swiss Next Network that acts like a network of scientific consulates to foster the exchange of ideas, knowledge globally. It started in Cambridge, in Boston, and has now locations in several cities in the US and all over the world. And there are more than 20 science counselors based at Swiss embassies in major cities worldwide. Now turning into our own matters, I asked, can we leverage these developments in Greece to enhance our country's international standing and influence? I believe the answer is a resounding yes. Greece has long been a leader in science, innovation, democracy, diplomacy, dating back to ancient times. If we can unite these strengths, Greece can play today a catalytic role in science diplomacy. By harnessing our scientific talent, our strategic location, and our deep diplomatic ties, we can position Greece as a central hub for science diplomacy in the global stage. And we can start with something simple yet powerful. Using spaces like this embassy to host international discussions between scientists, policymakers, and diplomats to address global challenges. We can tap on our vast network of Greek scientists, both within our country and abroad, to lead the conversation on the world's most critical technological and scientific advancements. And perhaps this will enable us to reverse the ongoing brain drain in Greece and transform it into brain gain. And this will, I'm definitely sure that this will bring lots of joy to so many Greek moms back home, including mine. So I envision a future in which Greece plays a catalytic role in science diplomacy. We have a rich scientific past. I think it's feasible to highlight the role of Greece as a science diplomacy hub that brings together those who will decide the future of artificial intelligence, of quantum technologies, energy security, pandemic preparedness, climate resilience, and so much more. So we've reached the end of our journey. I shared with you some childhood stories, my current academic achievements, and some dreams for the future. Allow me to conclude with the thoughts with which I began. It's a challenge to define success. I wonder, is it much more than the resilience to keep going when things don't go as expected? In all successful stories, we only see the top of the iceberg, not the failures underneath. If successful people had stopped early, there wouldn't be an iceberg to discuss today. If you've ever done research in the lab, you would know that 99% of the time, the experiment fails. It's this one success, this one aha moment that might contribute to perhaps curing a devastating medical condition. And believe me, I'm trying really hard at the lab right now to find this aha moment for me, so wish me luck. Each one of us is unique. This journey is just one example. To any fellow students in the audience, I would say that this journey doesn't have to be yours. Each one creates their own path, their own journey. And you don't have to start with robotics as a child to become a scientist. My lab mate, Erin, she didn't know that science could be a career until she was in college. And now she's one of the brightest PhD students we have in the lab and one of the most well-cited scientists. Oh, sorry. What did I do? And this is the same for any diplomats in the room, that they might have never talked to a scientist before, but it's never too late to get involved with science diplomacy. As I said, 2 years ago, I didn't even know that science diplomacy exists. So yeah, 2 years I didn't know it exists, and now I'm here pitching the idea to you. They say be yourself because everyone else is already taken. All pathways are unique, indeed, but they have certain universal values that may unite us all, including giving back to the community. And no matter what our unique background is, or any unique difficulties that we had to get here, we all in this room have the privilege to be in the United States. It's up to us to transform this privilege into contribution. My mom says, be the one you needed when younger. And yes, I could be younger as well, so I was younger. All of us, regardless of our position, job, age, or wealth, we can all become the role models that we wish we had in our lives and lift others with us. And one last thought from me. If you remember just one last word from today's presentation, let it be this: enthusiasm. If I could go back in time and I could speak to little Dimitris when he was starting to dream about the future, I would tell him not to worry about anything as long as he maintains his enthusiasm. To always find things that make him so enthusiastic that he spreads his enthusiasm to the people around him. As you know, in the universe of personal relations, there are black holes and there are bright stars. We should try to stay away from the dark black holes and find people that inspire us in the mid-light. Or to use my grandma's saying, if you wear dark glasses, everything around you seems dark and gloomy. But if you wear your rose set of glasses, you can see light and positivity that keeps you going. So thank you very much, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. And I have one last thing that I want you to remember. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So challenge accepted. Thank you so much.
If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them or raise your hand, and someone will come to you with the microphone. Christina.
I have the microphone, but they're not holding.
to ask, when do you envision the first brain surgery with these living wires for victims of dementia?
That's a great question. So we are trying in the lab as hard as we can to build the basic science first. And right now we have only tested in animal models, but it's very translational, the research we do. We call translational the research that is not science, that is not just science for the science, but it's science to go to the hospital and to go to patients. So this is a big focus at the University of Pennsylvania in this translational research. So my advisor, Dr. Casey Cullen, he has some startups in the lab as well that are trying to take the science, the basic science that we built, and commercialize it. So there are 2 startups right now that are trying to take the research that we do in animal models, move it into large-scale animal models, so non-human primates, and the next step will be to do clinical trials, hopefully showing that it's safe and effective to treat some of these conditions. But the brain is very complicated, so things are not very straightforward. And as I said, it's not just me working on this, it's like hundreds and hundreds of scientists trying to solve this. So it might be not next year, but as I said, wish me luck to find this aha moment myself and many other people out there that are trying to find some solutions for this.
As long as it's before I get dementia, it's fine. And one more question, are the live wires different for different parts of the brain that are affected, or the same?
Yes, so they're different, and I only gave the high level, so I didn't go into the specific details. But different parts of the brain communicate with different chemicals. Probably you've heard of dopamine, right? Dopamine is a chemical in the brain, and there are special neurons that are called dopaminergic neurons that all that they do is they produce dopamine. When there is lack of dopamine in a particular part of the brain, this is the reason that we have the motor symptoms in Parkinson's disease. So if you want to treat Parkinson's disease, what you have to do is take these dopaminergic neurons, create them in the living wire, and implant it in the place of the original bridge that was producing dopamine to this specific brain region. And for other conditions, it will be a different population of cells. But yeah, great question, thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. That was a very well-founded presentation, and your enthusiasm is contagious. So, thank you also, our ambassador, for her enthusiasm in bringing you over here and enlightening us with all these amazing new discoveries that you brought to us, but also I would be very interested to know, how did you start this journey from a very small place in the world called Thessaloniki? Was it from your home? Was it your school? I heard that your daughter was your coach, but how did you reach to the competitive stage at the European level? That's one thing that I'd like to know. Then I would like also to bring to your attention that there are great Greek scientists all over the United States that are thriving, and we're very proud to have them and enjoy their accomplishments. So maybe a combined effort from our embassy and you as a new scientist could bring together all these bright brains and excel into scientific diplomacy.
Yeah, great. So I'll start with the first part, that was how it all started. I started with 2013 because that was the first time that I got involved with robotics. And it wasn't just me. I showed the pictures with my brother as well. He's a mechanical engineer, and he was always interested in building stuff. So together, we spent countless hours just looking at, so it was when Lego for the first time create these Lego robot kits. And it was basically democratizing this idea of educational robotics to a wider audience. So remember how many nights we spent just looking at the Lego leaflet and imagining that one day we could build something cool. So we spent countless of nights, but we were just, 12 years old, having big dreams. And it was 2013 that my brother and I, we persuaded our grandparents to get us this huge gift. And the one thing brought the other then. No one in our school knew about educational robotics. Right now, even the Ministry of Education in Greece has it as a, I'm not entirely sure what they have, but they allow it as part of the curriculum in public schools in Greece, which wasn't the case. Even private schools didn't know about these things. So it was a struggle back then. As I said, that no teacher was willing to be our coach. We told them that we just need the paperwork, to sign for the paperwork, and we'll try to do our best. We don't need like your time if that's the issue. But no one was interested back then. Probably they didn't know what it was. I don't want to blame them. Maybe they thought it was just a stupid idea that the two students had, and we read the rules of the competition and realized that there is no requirement to be a school teacher, even though all coaches have been school teachers. So this is how we went to our dad, and he didn't know about robotics, but he was like, I'm gonna sign the document and you can go in your competition. And probably my parents also thought that this is just something that they want to play there, and they didn't really understand what it was. But then they started getting more involved as we went to the Europeans and the global competition, of course. And they were very supportive. So they're not here, but they're back in Greece, but I want to publicly say that I'm very grateful to my parents for this. The second part was for the science diplomacy in this vast network of scientists, right? Yeah, what was the
Greek scientists in the United States and how to take advantage of their presence here.
Exactly.
In order to lead to what you have just mentioned.
So the thing is that
Scientific diplomacy.
yes. So the thing is that policy will be made, whether scientists are involved or not, right? In the federal level here in the US, the Congress will keep voting for stuff. In Greece, they are voting in the parliament. Diplomats keep working. Whether scientists are involved or not, this is happening. But by bringing science in the equation, you can allow to solve some of these challenges that are so complicated that even science cannot solve by itself. So harnessing, we all hear about this great Greek scientist that made this discovery. It's every other day in the news. We have amazing scientists both within the country, in Greece, but also abroad. We see it in the news. But it would be great to try to use this vast network, and from maybe creating a national science diplomacy agenda, we can coordinate. I don't know if this will be in a government level or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I don't really know all the details about the bureaucracy of how it all works, but it would be great to have a centralized vision on how we can use all these scientists and do diplomacy for us wherever they are in the world. And in the US, there is a scientific leader. The United States, it is in many topics, but it's not the only country. There are many Asian emerging countries as well. So it could help with understanding as a country what are the trends, where technology is going, showcase the Greek advancements, bring US scientists and Greek scientists together, for example, maybe, or in the countries that we don't have very good diplomatic ties, use it. Maybe Greece neighbors, we could use science as this first level that will create the foundation on top of which we can have more formal diplomatic relations. But yeah, thank you for your question.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for giving such an amazing presentation. I go to a lot of presentations in Washington, and yours was by far more substantive and more engaging than most of them. So props to you for that.
Thank you.
For sure. And that's definitely what we need in a city where science isn't always the main focus, but it should be. So my question is, within the context, I guess I would come from more of the politics side of this trichotomy you were talking about. What is some policy changes or initiatives you'd like to see in the U.S. that could help increase the level of science diplomacy internationally and cooperation between the U.S. and the EU and Greece in moving towards this? And I guess a second question would be, what would be your message to policymakers? If you could tell them one thing, what would it be?
Okay, I'll start with the first question. The second is the most challenging. So the first one was for what we can do to increase science diplomacy. As I said, right now, there is no pathway to become a science diplomat. If you see this and you're like, oh, this is so cool, I'm a scientist and I want to become a science diplomat, or I'm a diplomat and I want to get training in science, there is no official way to do it. And that's why we have created this group, the Penn Science Policy and Diplomacy Group, that we're trying to bridge this gap and try to create people that have an interest in both worlds. You will have an expertise in one of them, you cannot have in both, but you need an understanding of both. Something that the United States is doing, and quite successfully, is that they have some fellowship programs. So there is the AAAS, Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, from the AAAS, the American Association for Advancement of Science. And this is a fellowship program, which unfortunately is only for US citizens, so I cannot do that. But it's one of the methods that they use to bring science in Congress. So what they do is that they have this fellowship, it's quite competitive to get in. You apply after you graduate from your PhD, a STEM PhD, in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And with this fellowship, you go in Congress and you work as a science advisor for the office of a congressperson, trying to bring the science perspective. And they also have, in the executive branch, some fellowships and fewer to work with judges. There are much fewer, which might change given the latest developments. In case, I don't want to go into too many technical details, but maybe you've heard for the Chevron case that was overturned. And this basically moved the scientific power on the scientific interpretation from Congress and executive agencies to judges. So we might see a shift on judges who require scientific input. But yeah, I think fellowships is a key way of training people to be in both worlds. There are no such fellowships, at least to my knowledge, in the European Union, let alone in Greece. If you could bring this model of science and technology policy fellowship in Greece, that would be amazing. Imagine graduates from engineering schools, science schools in Greece, that if you ask 1,000 of these people, I wonder if one will say that they want to work for a government agency. But we can transform that and create the mechanism through some benefits to make them want to go there and not just to go to industry, where they will probably make much more money as well. But to create this mechanism that they will want to get involved in in a government agency and bring the scientific input. So if we could bring this fellowship model, I think that would be huge. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The United States is doing that right now, and this fellowship is actually for more than 50 years. And if you go to any official in this science policy, science diplomacy field, from the science advisor to the Secretary of State, the science advisor to the president, the head of the White House Science Technology Policy, how's it called? OSTP, Office of Science Technology Policy at the White House, they all have done this fellowship. So it is this one pathway to get into policy. And I think it would be fantastic if we could bring a similar model to Greece and the European Union. And the second question was?
Your message to the government.
My message to the government?
Yeah, to the policymakers.
Which government? Greek government or?
Both, either or both.
They're different.
Okay. If I had the Prime Minister here in front of me, I would say, dear Prime Minister, Agapite Kyriako, we need to bring science in the decision making. I think he would agree with this big idea. And I would pitch for a national science diplomacy agenda in Greece to convert Greece as a science diplomacy hub. So first have this document, this framework. Of course, it's not going to transform everything. And I'm sure that people in diplomacy and the political sciences, they know that sometimes documents are just documents that are written but never read by anyone. But if it's a document that provides actionable things that different agencies can do, this would be the first step probably. And I should have come more prepared about what I would say. If I knew that the Prime Minister would be here, I would prepare a pitch to the government. But yeah, I think the national science diplomacy agenda, a fellowship program to bring the scientists that are graduating from Greek universities and they don't know what they want to do with their lives, and show them that there is a viable path to have an impact and make a change in the world. And the third, to create some sort of certificate programs in universities. So this is actually something that we are trying to do at Penn, not just be a group of students that we gather and try to learn stuff by ourselves, but have a more centralized certificate program. Because you can imagine that as a PhD student, my advisors, they want me to be in the lab. It's very hard to justify time to come to the embassy or to do like all these other things. But if it's a formalized certificate program that you can do as part of your PhD, it gives you some, and some validation, some, I don't know what's the right word. Yeah, and you can go to your advisor and be like, I'm just following this certificate program. It's not just that I woke up one day and decide that I want to change the world. So yeah, I don't know if it answers your question.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's great.
Thank you.
We have a question over here, and but we don't have a microphone.
Okay, so I'm going to be very quick. Thanks for your presentation, and good luck with all the projects you're working on. What sort of advice or message or tips you would offer to anyone who's interested in a career in bioengineering, just to stimulate their interest, see if that's something they'd like to get into? Yeah.
Advice. I spent a lot of time in the presentation talking about enthusiasm. And I know that some people might say it sounds like a cliche. And perhaps it is for some people, but for me, I really believe it. And I think my experiences in these competitions that had these core values, I think is what really motivate me to understand the meaning of enthusiasm. So I would really say, whether you want to do bioengineering, or whether you want to study something else, or whether you don't know what you want to study, which is totally valid. Having this passion, be passionately curious, I think that would be my advice. Be passionately curious. We were actually discussing just before the start of the presentation. We're discussing about a study from Dell Technologies. I think it was pretty old, from 2015 or 2018. And back then, they performed this study and they said that 80% of the students who start elementary school, that was in 2015, that 80% of the students that started elementary school in 2015, they would do a job that has not been invented yet. So when we ask our children and people that are trying to decide what they want to do, we ask them, what do you want to do? And we are considering the paths. You will go to law school and you will become a lawyer, or you will go to medical school and you become a doctor, or you will go to engineering school and you will become an engineer. And we forget that 80% will do jobs that have not yet been invented. So how can you prepare for such a future? I think I was lucky enough myself that I had supportive parents that when I told them I wanted to do bioengineering, the first thing that they said was, oh, that sounds cool. And then they were like, what is that? But it wasn't, oh no, how are you gonna make money from that? And I think this is an important thing that I think is changing, or at least I hope that it's changing, that we change this mentality, and instead of just trying to predefine the paths, we understand how everything is so interconnected. And this is something else that we were also discussing before. I was telling them a story when I went to the UK for the first time. And there was a professor in computer science that was working on robotics and was working on the interaction of robotics with humans. So while I was at the university, he moved, I think it was during my first semester there, he moved from the computer science department to the psychology department to continue his work on the human-robot interactions. And for me, that I came from the Greek system that you have to choose a stream and go to the technical or the humanities, and if you want to go to psychology, you have to do Latin, ancient Greek, history, what am I forgetting? Anyway, and Greek language, of course. And if you want to do psychology, you go to this. If you want to do computer science, it's a completely different thing. And I went there and I realized, wait, what? From computer science to psychology, he can have a joint appointment involved. And that was in 2018 in the UK. I think the US is way more advanced. You can have like now majors and minors on various different things in the United States, and there is an increasing trend for this interdisciplinarity. So, yeah, sorry, that was a long answer. I went around many things, but enthusiasm and that there is not one path that you have to know in advance. Because I didn't know what I want to study. Like, it was the hardest decision of my life to decide that I wanted to do bioengineering. And when I decided, I didn't know what I'm gonna end up being. And then I came to Penn and science diplomacy. I was like, that sounds cool, but I don't know anything about that. And now, I don't know, it might even be a viable career path. I don't know yet. And maybe in 2 years, something new will come up. So yeah, be open-minded, enthusiastic, and passionately curious.
So we will take one last question here.
Dimitris, first of all, I would like to congratulate you as well for your amazing journey so far, and wish you best of luck for your future plans. What I would like to ask is, how do you think we can inspire young boys and girls of 12 years of age back in Greece to follow your example, to follow your path, or be inspired by your path? Could you give, for example, lectures to Greek schools? Or could you even send a video like that so that young children of that age could believe that yes, it's doable, yes, we can do this, yes, we can go against all the odds and win this. How do you think we can do that and inspire not only young children back in Greece, but in every part of this world? Because you've mentioned on your presentation that when you went with your brother to your teacher and told him that you want to take part, he wasn't even sure what this was all about and if he was able to assist you. So how can we activate young and bright minds that are out there to follow the dreams or even be inspired for a dream like yours? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. The only thing that I want to say first is that I don't want to inspire them to follow my path, because this is just one path.
Yes.
But this idea of showing that, yes, we can do it. And if it's for STEM, yes, you can be the cool kid in your school doing robotics. That was also Will.i.am's message as a STEM ambassador. What he's trying to do is to show that you can be a superstar, not just in arts and music, but you can be a superstar in science too. So trying to inspire them to STEM programs. And because of my unique journey, I feel very lucky for where I am now and everything that has happened in my life so far. So I want really hard to make sure that I use the platform that I have now to give back. And that's why that was also an important part of my speech. When we came back from the global competitions, and it was the time that educational robotics was starting to become more popular in Greece, we tried to, as you said, inspire the next generation to go in the next competitions after ourselves. So we were lucky enough to go to give various presentations in Athens, in Crete, in Cyprus. And then the other thing that we can do to inspire is that become a coach in one of these teams. So is there a better way to inspire them being the coach that you wish you had? So actually, when I was 18 years old, the final year of high school, as I was preparing for the Panellapikes, the national university entrance exams in Greece, in my limited, but in my free time, I started coaching a team. And they went also to the European final. It was in Estonia, which I unfortunately had to miss because it was in June and it was overlapping with the first Panellapikes subject, that was the Greek language. And I don't think I could persuade my mom to skip the exams to go and follow the team in the competition. But yeah, I think through these different initiatives, I was later given a platform in a TEDx event in Athens, which also what I try to do is to share these experiences. And I think the important thing is, again, to highlight that this is just one example. I don't want to show that this is the way to go, because there was I didn't have a map, a roadway to say that this is the path. It just happened one thing after the other, having all these different core values that I think helped me find the path forward. But this is just one example, and I think that it's the responsibility of all of us to show that these things are feasible. We just need to give students the freedom to dream. What I say to my two younger sisters, the advice that I give is dream big and try to do even bigger, and even dream so big that you feel kind of embarrassed to share your dreams to the people around you. So having dreams, having goals, I think is what can inspire people to have a positive impact in the world.
So thank you very much, Dimitris.
And for the great It was, I think, an interesting discussion with your thoughtful questions. So thank you so much.